Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Jackie and today we're going to be doing my 2025 reading wrap up. I've never done a reading related video specifically, so I'm really excited to do one because I do love to read. If you watch any of my vlogs, you know that I talk about books all the time. So we'll definitely be talking about some books today that you've probably already heard me talk about a little bit, but I've got my story graph pulled up right now. So for 2025, that was actually the first year, or I don't know. I want to say this was actually the first year, but technically it was a few days ago. So 2025 was the first year that I actually set an actual reading goal for myself. I don't usually track it that like close, but I wanted to do that this year. So my goal was 30 books. How many did I actually read? I think that I logged like 32 or 33 books. Oh my God, I should have this pulled up. I'm not prepared. 32 books is what it says. Now, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. I don't log every single book that I read because sometimes I like to read some smut before bed. Okay, just something, easy, low stakes, just something honestly to put me to sleep. And I don't always log the smutty books that I read. So honestly, I probably read about 45 books. I probably read about 45 books this year, but you don't need to know about the secret books, okay? So let's just start with my first book of the year that I logged, and that was one of my new favorites, actually, and that was Bunny by Mona Awad. Bunny was such a fun book for me. It was my first book that I had read by Mona Awad, and I instantly was like, okay, I think that I love her, which I feel like Mona Awad is probably a love or hate kind of a situation. Her writing is very much like a fever dream. It's very much like what is going on. Bunny specifically, it's about a character whose name is Samantha, and she's in a writing program. And in her writing program is another group of girls who call each other Bunny. And they're just like this small little clique, and they call each other Bunny all the time. And they're just like kind of all over each other, very much giving weird kind of vibes. And then one day they invite Sam to join their little writing group that they call Smut Salon. Which, like, okay, I'd go. And what happens at the smut salon, I cannot tell you. You have to read to find that out. But once she starts hanging out with the bunnies, things just start getting weirder and weirder. And it's really just such a strange book, but I personally loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I am going to tell my ratings through this as well, but I gave it 4.5 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars only because I was so confused for a lot of it. And while I don't always feel like I need to know what's going on in a book, sometimes I do get a little bit frustrated with the amount of confusion in certain books. So the fact that this was so much just like a weird dream sequence, I was like, what is going on? But I still loved it. And I have to say, it's one of those books that, like, the last line in the book just absolutely does it for me. Whenever I read the last line of the book, I was like, excuse me? And if you've read it, then you know. But obviously, don't look that up if you haven't read it already. But that was Bunny by Mona Awad. Loved it, loved it, loved it. The next book that I read was Educated by Tara Westover. And I actually listened to this one as an audiobook. It wasn't my first audiobook, but it was my only audiobook that I've listened to as a memoir. No, what I mean is this is the first memoir that I've read that I listened to as an audiobook. I love memoirs, but I've never listened to one before, and I had heard such good things about this one that I decided to finally listen to it, and it was so freaking good. There's Boomer, by the way. I loved this book. It was really long, as far as I remember. It felt like it was really long, but it was just so heart-wrenching, and the story I felt like was so rich, and you're learning about her family. It's about the author, obviously, Tara Westover, who grew up in like a very, very rural area. I think, where was it? Idaho, Illinois, not Illinois. Where was it? Okay, yes, they were in Idaho. They like lived in the mountains in Idaho. It was her with her brothers, her mom and her dad. Her dad, like, her parents were both just like, I don't know, the kids had to stay at home. They weren't allowed to go to hospitals if anybody got hurt, and they're doing all kinds of dangerous stuff. Her dad kind of ran like a junkyard, and so the boys worked there with him, and so of course there were injuries and stuff that happened, but this book was so amazing, and so it was just one of those like really inspiring books. And I feel like I don't read a lot of books that are inspiring in any way. I'm more of like a fiction kind of a person, and this was so inspiring because basically what Tara does is she's not allowed to go to school, they're not allowed to go to hospitals, they're very much just like staying at home, totally away from society. And Tara didn't want to do that. She wanted to educate herself, and so she literally like puts herself through college, and it's so amazing. It just made me cry my eyes out. I actually rated this one 5 stars. It was one of my 5-star reads of the year. So if you're looking for a very, very inspiring, very like the storytelling of her family, I love, that's part of why I love fiction so much, is I love hearing about family dynamics and like drama and what's going on. But this is like obviously nonfiction and gave you all of that. So if you're interested in interesting family dynamics, an inspiring story, just like a really heartfelt, heartwarming but also heartbreaking kind of a story, I would definitely recommend Educated. The next book that I read was another audiobook. I actually was listening to Educated and this book while I was working on a really large cross-stitch project, which I think was why I was doing audio, because I like wanted to start working on my reading goal, but whatever. I don't have to justify an audiobook to you, okay? Audiobooks are a reading. Anyway, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I don't think that I said the authors of the other two. Yeah, I did. Sorry. Anyway, this book, holy crap. Another 5-star. Okay, I should have said this at the top of the video. I do think that I am pretty generous when it comes to rating books, so take my ratings like with a grain of salt, because I'm not super hard to please, I don't think, although there are some DNFs and low ratings on this list. But I don't know, I loved this book so much. It was like, I think about this book, and this is one of those books where I wish that I could read it again for the first time. And I specifically would recommend listening to this one because I thought that the narrator of this did such a wonderful job and had a beautiful voice, and it was just so good. So this book is about Eleanor Oliphant, okay, the main character, and she is very much giving on the spectrum, okay? She's very different. She has a hard time with social cues. She takes a lot of things very, very literally and seriously, and just like doesn't understand a lot about people. Like I remember at the beginning of this book, whenever we were hearing all of her inner thoughts, like her inner monologue, I was like, she's kind of really rude. But then I'm like, no, she's not. She just is like, why are people doing that? Like, why do people do that? And like the way that she thinks and talks about things, I'm like, she sounds familiar. So if at first you're listening or you're reading and you're like, what is her deal? Trust me, you'll learn to love her. But it's just about her life. Okay, she works in an office. She just kind of has her like normal day to day. But as the story goes on, we're basically just following her in her life at her office job. And also she has a very complicated relationship with her mother. There's like some tricky family stuff there. She's got a lot of trauma that happened in her life that we learn about throughout the story. And so it's really just like, it really is just kind of a day in the life kind of story, which I love those kinds of stories. But I love her as a character so incredibly much. I really adored this book. I thought that it was funny, but it was also emotional, and it got dark at times. It just was like so, so good. And there were definitely, I don't want to say there were twists, but there were definitely moments in the book where you're like, whoa, what? Which I was not expecting at all. So I would highly, highly recommend this one. And again, specifically audio, I would recommend for this one. Okay, so you know how I just said that I wasn't easy to please, or well, I said I wasn't hard to please. I said I'm easy to please. I guess I lied, because next I read Bride. No, I didn't. I tried my best and I only got a little bit through, and I was like turning the pages like, please God, get me through this. Okay, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I'm sorry. This is probably going to hurt some people's feelings or piss some people off. I don't care. All right, it's fine. It's books. It's all my opinion. And it's your opinion if you love it. I love that you love it. I know that people love this book. It looks like on Storygraph it has an average 4.02 rating. Yeah, I gave it 2 stars, and that was generous. Trust me, okay? I didn't quite put this one in DNF because when I got about halfway through, I did just start like skimming, and I am not a skimmer. I want to read, I want to digest, I want to get it all. This book put me to sleep, okay? And I'm not making a joke. It legitimately, every time that I sat down to read this, I would fall asleep within like 2 minutes. I found this book to be so incredibly boring. Now, please keep in mind, I'm not a huge fantasy reader, all right? And whenever I am, we'll get to some books that I've read that are like sort of fantasy-ish this year, and you'll kind of learn the sort of fantasy that I like. This is obviously very much like vampires, werewolves, not my cup of tea. It's just not. And I do have to say, all of the I don't know what I was expecting. It's a fucking vampire book, but all of the like graphic blood drinking, descriptions, those hurt me, okay? Those didn't do it for me. Those disgusted me. Those made me feel physically ill. I was like, I can't do this. I wasn't crazy about the chemistry. I wasn't crazy about the vibes. I thought the story itself had way too much going on. I'm not even really going to summarize it because I don't freaking remember what was going on. It's like a vampire and a werewolf, you know. It was boring. There was too much going on. I was confused. There were like all these side things going on. I didn't care about the story of what was going on. I think like someone goes missing. Again, I'm so sorry, I'm not doing this one justice, but like, I feel like most people already know this book or know what it's about. If you are into fantasy, if you are into romance, if you are into vampires and werewolves, then I would maybe recommend it to you. But I just thought that it was so boring. I couldn't stand it. I'm sorry, I couldn't stand it. Next up, I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Oh, it says Rebecca F. Kuang. I've only ever seen R.F. Kuang. Loved this book, 4 stars. Okay, this book is about 2 classmates who go to Yale together, or they went to Yale together. And they were kind of like rising stars. They're both writers. And pretty much this is a story of, oh man, what's it called? Why can't I think of the word? I wanted to say procrastination, but that's not it. What's it called whenever you plagiarism? Kind of plagiarism. Pretty much, it's these 2 girls. They went to school together. They're both up and coming writers. One of them is extremely successful, but something happens to her. And so then the other one steals her story. Okay, so this is a story about plagiarism. It's a story about racism. It is so good. It's so juicy. I saw this recommended by a lot of people, but I think that I specifically saw this recommended on Reddit whenever somebody asked for books that were like, felt like you were reading someone gossiping about another person, and they put this book as a recommendation, and I was like, that's very, very true. It's so, I don't want to say fun because it's very dark and there's a lot of extremely dark themes in it, of course, but it's very, very juicy. It's very like, it's very, oh no, she didn't. You know what I mean? So loved this book. I thought it was a good time. I gave it 4 stars, like I said. And it's so interesting to be in the head of someone who is clearly very unwell and feels so justified in what she's doing by trying to steal this other person's story. Okay, as a white woman, like it's a lot, but I loved it. Okay, the next one I read is definitely not my usual categories. I should have said this also at the top of the video. I'm learning as I go here, okay? But mostly I read dark, emotional, mysterious. I like literary fiction. I love literary fiction. I usually go for fiction. I'm not really a big nonfiction kind of a girl, but this is a nonfiction. It's also psychology, and it is called The Art of Taking It Easy by Dr. Brian King. My therapist actually recommended this to me, and it's basically just a book about stress. It teaches you about stress. It teaches you about how we hold stress in our bodies, why our bodies react physically in the way that they do to stress, and he often uses the comparison of like, if you're stuck in traffic, sometimes your body can feel like you're being chased by a bear. And that's obviously like some wires are crossing there. And I am someone who carries a ton of stress in my body, and my body from like head to toe gets really, really affected whenever I'm stressed. And my therapist was like, I would recommend this. You know, she never makes me read anything, but she just recommends it. And I was like, I'm down. I gave it 3.75 stars. It was good. I thought that it was really interesting to learn more about like the actual inner workings of our brain and how they're processing stress and why we react the way that we do to stress. But I did feel like with a lot of books like this, it was very repetitive. It was very much like, okay, I get it. As I'm reading, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand. So it wasn't the best thing I've ever read, but it was different. Oh God, next. Okay, Just Kill Me Now. Another one that I listened to as an audiobook. Why did I do this to myself? I don't know. And this is another one I was listening to while I'm working on my big cross-stitch project, It by Stephen King. What? Okay, what? 44 hours and 55 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Okay, if you don't know what It is about, I'm not even going to explain it to you. I'm so sorry if I'm doing the book video thing wrong, but like, who doesn't know what It is about? It's about a clown that murders children. Spoiler alert, okay? I gave it 3.75 stars. So I didn't hate it, but it was so dark and so depressing, and I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, it's literally Stephen King. It's literally about a clown that kills children, but it was so dark, so heavy. just heavy, heavy, sad, dark, scary, bad vibes. Okay? That's how I describe this one. There's not much more to say. It was so long. Like, the physical book is literally this. It's about the size of my head. Like, you could have taken a few chapters away. I don't know, just my opinion. Another audiobook next on the list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I gave this one a 3-star rating. I wasn't crazy about it. I did enjoy the audiobook specifically of this one because there are so many different characters and they did have different people voicing all of the characters. And I thought that was really great. That really like immersed me into the story. But the story itself just felt kind of like, okay, you know, it's about a band in what, the 60s, the 70s. Again, I'm sorry, I should know this before I'm talking about it. This book is really highly rated. I'm kind of shocked, but it's kind of like Daisy, the main character, the main girl in the band, is this like manic pixie dream girl kind of a vibe. And it's just about her being in this band. And it's more than that. You know, it's all the relationships between people. We get side stories of different relationships and different narrators who are giving us their side of the story with things. So that was a fun aspect because I do enjoy getting different perspectives of things. But I don't know, I just wasn't wowed with the book itself. I do know that it's a show and I haven't watched the show yet. I'm kind of interested in the show, but I just thought it was okay. This next book sent me on a spiral of being obsessed with Mount Everest, all right? And that is Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. Krakauer? Crocker. Not Crocker. Krakauer? I'm sorry, Jon. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book, but it was heavy. Scary in a real way. It's another nonfiction. It's also a memoir. This book is an account of the disaster in 1996 that happened on Mount Everest where lots of people died. It's very, very scary. Basically, Jon was a reporter for a certain magazine and he was going to report on the people who climbed to Everest. And then he was just kind of like, why don't I just go on the hike as well? So he decides to go on the hike with the people who are going. And so we get to learn about all of these people who are on the hike and how many times that they've done it or how long they've always wanted to do it. And we get to learn about them and their families and all of this stuff. And then, you know, they get to Everest and it is just, oh my gosh, it's a shit show for lack of a better word. There's a really, really bad storm. It's extremely scary. This book was really informative. It was really interesting. Like I said, it honestly made me obsessed with Mount Everest for a little while. Like I couldn't stop looking up pictures. I couldn't stop looking up videos. I couldn't stop looking up comparisons of like, how tall is Everest compared to whatever else, you know? And then I remember one night looking specifically, I found a video of Mount Everest where someone was at the peak. And I don't know why I hadn't comprehended how tall it is, but in the video that you can see around the mountain and it's just clouds, like it's just atmosphere because you're so high up. And that just made me feel so sick to my stomach. I was like, what? It's crazy learning about what happens to your body, the altitude sickness, the conditions that you're living in, and like the pressure that you're putting on your body just to climb this mountain. For what reason, you know? So this story was really, really heartbreaking. It really made me sad. It was super dark. I was reading it before bed, which is not a good choice. I definitely had some bad dreams, but I do think it's worth a read if you're interested in any kind of rock climbing, mountain climbing, just learning about, I don't know, a sad story, I guess. Okay, I honestly find it funny that I said I was really generous with ratings because now I've got another one that is a 2.75, and that is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Are we serious with this book? Okay, I'm sorry. What the hell? No, this was just a no for me. It didn't hit. It was so boring. I'm sorry I didn't like it. I do see the appeal, but I was like, what? Okay, so it's about, do we have her name, the narrator? I'm so sorry. I should be reading these before I start, but I just keep apologizing. So basically it's about, let's see, she's a recent Columbia graduate. She works an easy job. She lives in the Upper East Side. Okay, love that. Basically, she decides that she wants to sleep for a year, which I'm like, also reading the description, I'm like, down for that. Would love that. I love to sleep. But she does it like drug induced, basically. She kind of like puts herself into a drug induced slumber. And when she wakes up, she like eats a piece of pizza and then she does more drugs and goes back to sleep. And this book was so boring. That's it. It was so boring. And then I'm not going to give any spoilers, of course, but those of you who have read it, I'm curious to know your thoughts because, like, the ending, what? I don't know. I felt like the ending was supposed to be kind of like a whoa kind of a moment, but to me, whenever I read the ending, I was like, what? I was like, we're tying that in? I don't know. It was just, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. Okay, but what was for me was this next freaky deaky book, all right? Geek Love by Katherine Dunn. I'm going to warn you right now, okay? If you are someone who likes, like I said, my storygraph is like dark, emotional, difficult, challenging. That's this. Geek Love is about a family of circus performers, okay? The family are the Benuskis, and there are multiple children. There's the mom and the dad, and it basically just follows their life working for the circus. And the entire family is a circus act. They each have their own quirk about them that I'll say. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, but this book was so disturbing, and I feel like I've read some disturbing stuff before, but this was so painfully disturbing, but like in a really enjoyable way for me, which I know that's gross. I'm sorry, but I gave it 4 stars also, by the way. Only because some of it got so incredibly dark that I was like having a little bit of a hard time with it. But it basically just follows their life. We do have an alternate timeline situation. It's part of it is like current day, and then the other part of it is talking about what's going on in the past. So your current day narration is from one of the members of the family who is still around at the current time. But yeah, it's just about them, their life in the circus, their relationships with each other, the family dynamics. There's a lot of interesting comparisons with like sibling rivalries and like worrying about who's getting more views at their show versus the other one. And oh man, it is so dark. It is so disturbing. It is so interesting. But I know I keep saying it's dark, but I do have to warn you. I recommend this if you're someone who likes a freaky book and if you're ready to be like, that is so messed up. The amount of times I was reading this and I was like, that is so messed up. I said that so many times. So if you're down for that, I would recommend Geek Love to you. I will warn you yet again, it is crazy dark. Okay, like it's bad, but I loved it. Ooh, okay, this next book I really wanted to love, and I think that I would have loved it. Sorry. I think I would have loved it more if I hadn't read a different book just a couple months previous. And I might tell you that, but I might not, just in case, because I don't want to give you any like weird spoilers by making the connection somehow. Anyway, Our Wives Under the Sea by Juhea Armfield. I gave this 3.5 stars, and this was really good, but it just didn't really hit for me because I had read a book that kind of gave me a similar vibe and a similar premise, I guess, just a couple months beforehand. So the story itself is very interesting, okay? It's about a couple, Miri and Leah, and Leah gets back from going on this underwater expedition, okay? She was underwater in a submarine, and whenever she comes back, first of all, they were only supposed to be gone for a couple weeks, but they were gone for months, I believe, and whenever she gets back, she's just different. And so her wife, Miri, is like, something's off, something's different. She's acting different. Her eating habits are different. She looks a little bit different. All of her, everything that makes her her is slowly changing. And so really, I feel like this is another really dark story that is kind of about, I don't know, it feels like it's about grief in a way. And that's not a spoiler because, I mean, if you are with someone and for whatever reason they start to change, I think that causes you to grieve, right? You grieve who they were and what your relationship was. And so it's kind of just about this relationship and them learning to live with each other in these new conditions. And yeah, it was really dark. It was really interesting. You get another double timeline of current day with Miri and Leah, and then we also get some flashbacks to the submarine, and Leah was down there with her coworkers and what was going on in the submarine, and it's all very mysterious and dark and scary, but I don't know, it didn't hit that hard for me like I wanted it to, but I did still enjoy it. Okay, this next one, I'm really gonna have to control myself because y'all already know I could talk about this book this video is going to be like 12 hours long. I could just talk about this book for 12 hours, but I won't, okay? Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. O-M-effing-G. Okay, this book, I don't want to be like, this book changed my life, but it did, because now all that I can think about is the Locked Tomb series. Okay, so I am going to kind of include the whole series right here, only because I have read the other two, which are Harrow the Ninth and Nona the Ninth. I've read all three of them this year. There is a fourth one that's supposed to be coming out, but we don't know when. So I'm going to just include all of those right here, because I'm not going to talk about the details of the other ones. But this book, oh, this book is so good. I had heard people talk about this book. I'd heard people say it was so fun. It was so funny. It was so good. And like, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. And oh my God, is that true? Needless to say, 5-star read. Maybe my new favorite book of all time, truly, because it was just so much fun. So this is a fiction, fantasy, they call it a space opera. It does take place in space. It's like very light fantasy. It's more sci-fi, I would say. It's like a sci-fi fantasy kind of a vibe. Takes place in space, and it is just so good. So this book follows a couple of main characters, all right, Gideon and Harrow, which they have longer names that we won't get into, but basically the premise of the story is that the Emperor wants to call these necromancers to come do a competition to become a lictor. And a lictor is basically like an immortal necromancer, okay? And so this book does have a lot of magic. It has necromancy, which is like death magic. It has bone magic, flesh magic, blood magic, all kinds of magic. That's the kind of fantasy that I enjoy, is magic. I'm not into the like vampires, fairy stuff. Give me this, you know? So the Emperor calls for a necromancer from each of the 9 houses to come compete for this lictorhood trial situation. But the whole deal is, if you want to compete in this, if you're a necromancer, you have to have a cavalier. And the necromancer is the one who does all of the magic, whereas the cavalier is like the swords person. They're kind of like your right-hand man. It's more like the necromancer is the brains and the cavalier is the brawn. And so this book is mostly about Harrow and Gideon, who have grown up together. They hate each other. They cannot stand each other. And they end up having to be necromancer and cavalier and work together for these lictor trials. And oh my, I know that all I keep saying is, oh my God, but like, you know, I could go on about this forever, so I'm going to try not to. This book is so fun. It is so funny. Gideon specifically as a character is one of my all-time favorite book characters that I have ever read in my life. I think she is so funny. She's so sassy. She has the driest humor. She's such an asshole. I am in love with her in every sense of the word, okay? And Harrow as well. Harrow is also very sassy. They hate each other. They have this like back and forth all the time. The dialogue is so good. The settings are so good. They're all described so vividly that you can really see what's going on. And also, this was another series that I did listen to, which I would 1,000,000,000% recommend, because they are read by Moira Quirk, who is such a good narrator, and she does such a great job with voices and just has a beautiful voice as it is. But I think that specifically, if you're interested in Gideon the Ninth, I would listen to it, because hearing the personality of Gideon and the personality of Harrow really adds a lot to this book. And then you get a bunch of other characters. There's a time in the story whenever they get to the lictor trials where you're introduced to all of the other 9 houses. And so hearing someone read in these different voices and personalities, everybody else, that makes it really helpful. But basically, the first book talks about the lictorhood trials. The second book, Harrow the Ninth, talks about what happens after the lictorhood trials. And then the third book, Nona the Ninth, talks about what happens after the lictorhood trials. So I don't want to spoil anything at all. I would hate to spoil this for you. I will just tell you right now that if you wanted to get into this series, just stick with it, okay? If you're reading it and it's getting confusing, specifically with Harrow the Ninth, trust me, just push through it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. There are times where you're not going to know what the heck is going on. You will learn what's going on by the end of everything. I promise you. But this is my favorite series. I don't read a lot of series, but this is no doubt my favorite. Absolutely my favorite read of the year would be Gideon the Ninth. So I've talked about it for long enough already. You already know how I feel. If if you've seen me or heard me talk about it before, which if you're watching this, you probably have, please, everybody read Gideon the Ninth and then talk to me about it. Okay, next we have another memoir. This was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and I gave this a 4-star rating. I liked it, but I feel like people really, really are crazy about this book, and I really enjoyed it. It was written in a very unique way, but I wasn't like crazy obsessed with it like a lot of people are. It's a memoir, of course, and it's very dark as well. It follows her and her relationship with her ex, and it's a very, very abusive, very sad, very dark story. But it does talk about important things because it's mostly focusing on a lesbian relationship and how there is violence and abuse in lesbian relationships, but it's not normally talked about. Typically, whenever we think about an abusive relationship, we tend to think about a man and a woman, and we think about the man being the abuser. I think that's just kind of what everybody's brain automatically goes to. So this book specifically, it's talking about something very important, which is that like this happens in all kinds of relationships, and it happens a lot specifically in lesbian relationships as well. So I did enjoy that it was putting that out there and talking about that. And it was written in such a unique way that each chapter was kind of modeled after a certain kind of literary trope, which was really fun, but also made me a little bit confused sometimes, where it would give you like a title of a trope or the title of the chapter I found to be a little bit confusing. And so I think that this was a me problem where I was getting too hung up on what the trope meant rather than really taking in the information of what was going on in her story. So I think that the confusion and the like not being crazy about it was mostly from me trying to understand things too much, I guess. All right, next we have a thriller. This is The Return by Rachel Harrison, and I gave this one 4 stars. This was really fun. I haven't read a ton of thrillers this year. I usually in the past have read way more thrillers, but I find the more that I read, the more predictable they are. This one, not predictable, I'll tell you that. Okay, it's about a group of friends. They have one friend named Julie who has gone missing. She's been missing for 2 years, and 2 years exactly to the date that she has gone missing, she comes back. So to celebrate, the girls go on a little girls' trip to this hotel, and Julie is off. There's something wrong with her. She's acting different. She looks different. She doesn't look well. She's not acting normal. All of her friends are like, what's going on with Julie? And I can't tell you what's going on with Julie, but there is something going on with Julie. I can't really say much more, but this is a really fun thriller that again was kind of like a gossipy, oh my god, like what the hell's going on kind of a vibe. Okay, another 5-star, another audiobook, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. Oh my god. I mean, you've probably heard of this book. You've probably read this book. I would listen to this one, okay, because it was just so good. So this book follows a character named Tova. She works at the local aquarium, and she's working there just to kind of take up time after her husband has died. Her son also passed away like years and years ago. He went missing in a boat wreck, I believe. And this story just follows her job at the aquarium, and she has a sweet relationship with the octopus who lives there, whose name is Marcellus. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this story is that you do get a lot of different POVs, and one of your POVs is from Marcellus, the octopus. So I would recommend listening to this one because the narrator gives Marcellus just the best voice. It feels so right for him as a character. And it's about their relationship with each other, how they're getting to know each other. It's about Tova's past, Tova's history. We learn more about what's gone on with Tova's family in the past. And there are more characters that come into play that just get involved in the whole situation. But it mostly is about Tova and her relationship with Marcellus. And I can't say a lot about this one, but this one had me ugly crying, I'll tell you that. Next, I read City of Nightbirds by Juhea Kim, and this one I gave 3.5 stars. I was kind of disappointed by this one. I don't know why, but it just wasn't that great to me. So this is a book about ballet. If you are a dancer, you might really enjoy this book. I'm not a dancer. I've never done ballet. I wish I was a ballerina, but I'm too old for that now. So I think I was trying to like live out my ballerina fantasy, and this book was not a ballerina fantasy. Okay, it follows our main character, Natalia, Leonova, and she was like the greatest ballerina of her time until she had a really bad injury that kind of put her out of work for a while. And this book mostly just follows her story, past and present, of being in the ballet, learning to cope with her injury or not cope with her injury. She does a lot of drugs. She drinks a lot of alcohol. She's not coping well, but we also learn a lot about her relationships that she had with some other dancers and everybody's relationships with each other, and they're kind of rivals, and there's a lot going on. I think that, again, this is specifically would be a really interesting book for people who are dancers and know more of what they're talking about, but it's really, really heavy in just like the Russian dance scene. And I don't know, it was hard for me to understand a lot of what was going on because I'm not a dancer, but there was drama, there was love, there was, tea to be spilled, which was fun, but overall, it didn't really impress me that much. Okay, this next one is a beach read for me. This is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. I gave this one 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one. It follows 2 twin sisters who grew up in a small Black community, and one of them is white passing and the other one is not. And as they're growing up, they separate. So one of them runs off. We don't know where she is, but we know that she's married and that she is pretending to be white, and her husband has no idea of who she is or where she came from or anything like that. They both have daughters, okay? The other sister is still living in their community, raising her daughter there, and it's really mostly about sisterhood. It's about how their stories are still intertwined. It's about their daughters and how their daughters want to learn more about their mothers, as daughters do. And it's about racism. It's about a lot. It's really, really good. I really thought this one was really clever and really interesting, and just, I don't know, it brought up a lot of interesting questions, and I really liked the way that the stories kind of play off of each other, I guess you could say, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I really enjoyed the ending of this one as well. But yeah, it was really good. It was very complicated, very dark, very like I usually like to read, but very literary as well. We're very much in the heads of the characters and wondering about each other's motivations, wondering what's going on with the other, wondering if the other one is thinking about them at all. I don't want to say that there's yearning, because it's not like a romantic yearning, but it's very much like a sibling kind of a feeling that pull, specifically if you have a twin. Next, also at the beach, I read another thriller. This was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, and this one was disappointing to me. I gave it 3 stars. It's about a character named Casey, and she is a widowed actress, and she is just kind of trying to like get away from all the hoopla that's going around about her and what's going on in her life. So she goes to her family's lake house, and while she's there, she is using binoculars and looking across the lake, and she's seeing this husband-wife duo who have this big house and seem like everything's perfect, but one day the wife goes missing, and from some things that Casey has seen, she's thinking, okay, I think I might know what went on here. And so it's just about that relationship. It's about what's going on with the marriage. It's about what's going on with Casey and in her head, and she gets to know some other neighbors, and there's new relationships there. But this one, here's the problem with this one. For the majority of it, it very much was giving me like fun thriller vibes. I was very much like, ooh, is it this person? Is it that person? Did this happen? Did that happen? I was very much invested, but I feel like towards the end of the book, it like completely took a turn. And I don't want to say specifically, but it's like most of the book was this. And then it was like, actually, it's this now. Like things just kind of flipped. And if you've read it, then you know what I'm talking about, but I did not enjoy that. I'm like, why did we have to bring that into it? It's just some different elements come into play that I had not even considered and end up being what happened. And I'm just like, huh? So I don't know. This one was just kind of like, what the hell? By the time I was done with it, that's what I was saying. I was saying, what the hell? All right, the next one again, I'm not going to explain it to you because you know it, you love it. Maybe you don't. Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. If you can believe it, well, I don't watch a lot of movies, so you probably can believe it, but I've never seen Bridget Jones's Diary. I thought, why not read it? That seems fun. It wasn't fun, okay? It wasn't fun. It was 2.5 stars. That's all that it was. It was so lame. I thought it was so boring. I thought there were way too many like fat jokes. I'm like, can we not? And of course, like when it was written, not that it's ever appropriate, but it was written in like 1996 or something. So it's very much giving a book that was written about a single woman in her 30s in the 90s. Okay, it very much just like gives that vibe. So if you've seen it, you know what it's about. If you've read it, you know what it's about. I thought it was going to be a really fun, silly, good time. It wasn't. Okay, we have another Mona Awad book. The next one that I read was Rouge, and this, yet again, another 5 stars from me. I also read this one at the beach, and I loved this book. Oh my God, I loved this book so much. Again, very much a fever dream, very much a like, what the hell is going on situation. But this one felt, I don't know, I really liked the story behind this one, I think. So this follows our main character whose name is Belle, and she goes back to Southern California after her mother mysteriously dies. And while she's at the funeral and while she's in town, she ends up kind of stumbling upon this really mysterious spa that she finds out that her mom was a member of. And it's kind of like a med spa type vibe. It's like all about wellness, all about anti-aging. And our main character, Belle herself, she is like obsessed with beauty. She's obsessed with skincare. She follows YouTubers that she watches religiously. She has like tons of skincare products and is constantly doing masks and massages and just all kinds of stuff. And so it on the surface seems very much like a book and a story about, you know, the wellness industry, the beauty industry, and like how deep will we go to stay young. And that is a major part of the story. But to me, it more so was about a story of mothers and daughters and that relationship and how precious and complicated and weird that relationship can be, and how we can pass things down so easily without even realizing it. You know, I say to our daughters, I don't have a daughter. Just to be clear, I don't have a daughter. But like, man, it way more than the beauty. It was more of a mother-daughter story to me. And I think that's probably why I loved it so much. Very weird, very out there, very much as you're reading, you're like, literally, what the hell is going on? Pretty much with Mona Awad's books, as you're reading, it's not clear if what you're reading is actually happening or not. And sometimes I struggle with the confusion of that, but I feel like after reading Bunny, reading my second Mona Awad book and knowing that like that's the vibe, I was like, okay, I'm down for the ride. I don't need to know. It's up to my interpretation. It's art after all. So, oh my gosh, she learns more about what exactly her mom was doing at this spa, and she gets involved with the spa herself. And it's not good. I'll tell you that. The book is good, but what's going on at the spa, I don't know. Oh my gosh, I had to go get some water. I feel like I have been talking forever. It's been an hour of recording, okay? I don't know how long this will be whenever I edit, but if you're still here with me, thank you very much for sticking through this. I hope you're enjoying it. Okay, next book, Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Man, this one really disappointed me. Okay, this one is about a conversion camp in Montana and what happened at the conversion camp, a gay conversion camp. And this book from the beginning really, really gripped me because we learn about the characters. We're like getting a lot of character relationships, a lot of family drama. As you can see, I really enjoy literary. I like being in the characters' heads. I really love relationship information. I like the drama. I like what's going on between this person and that person. So we got a lot of that in the beginning of the book. But then I feel like about halfway through, once we actually start learning what was going on at the conversion camp, I don't know, it kind of lost me. It wasn't silly per se, but I felt like the horror elements of this were like a little too, maybe it was silly. It just didn't feel, I couldn't take it seriously. And I don't think Chuck Tingle specifically, from what I know, wants to be taken super, super seriously. At least like his writing is pretty silly, but I don't know. I just expected to really be wowed by this one, and I was pretty disappointed. And the beginning really got me, and I wish that we could have gotten way more relationship, interpersonal stuff rather than the horror stuff that ends up happening. Ooh, okay, this next one, if you watch my vlogs, again, you've probably heard me talk about this one, but I loved this book. It's called That's All I Know by Eliza Levi, and I gave this one 4.25 stars. This was such an interesting premise for a book. The way that this one was written is so interesting. Okay, so it's very short, 168 pages, so it's really, really quick. It's a contemporary fiction, and it follows a character named Little Leah who lives in a very, very small rural town, like very small, and the end of the world is approaching. And we hear a lot about that throughout the book, that the end of the world is coming, the end of the world is approaching, and you kind of learn what that means, okay? But the book starts out with a stranger coming into town, and he's on the edge of the woods, and his dog runs into the woods, and he loses his dog. And little Leah is there, and she's like, don't go in there. If you go in there, you're not going to come out. And so the man trusts her and doesn't decide to go into the woods. And so then the entire book is one sustained monologue from little Leah. The entire thing is just her talking to this man. He does not talk back, okay? It is completely her monologue talking about the town, her friends, her family. She has a mom who runs a small grocery store. She has a little sister who she helps take care of. She's kind of her like main caretaker. And she just talks about what is going on in the town, what's going on with the end of the world approaching, the rights and the wrongs of humans and life and relationships. And this was a really, really interesting book that I thought at first as I was reading, I was like having a little bit of a hard time with it, because I think that I described this as like, if you know anybody in your life that talks your ear off and does not give you a chance to speak, kind of like I've been doing in this video. Like, I know some people who just talk at you, but it's not a conversation. At first, that's how I felt. I felt a little stuck. I felt like I was stuck in a one-way conversation of like, oh my God, is she ever going to stop? But as you get to know her more, and as you're learning more about the different people that she knows and the story of what's going on, it's very interesting. She's very endearing. You learn to love her. And this was a really heart-wrenching kind of a story, I thought, but I really, really liked it. Okay, this next one I literally don't even remember reading. I gave it 2 stars, The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh, fiction, contemporary, mystery, thriller. Emma loves her husband Leo and their young daughter Ruby. She'd do anything for them, but almost everything she's told them about herself is a lie. Literally don't remember this one. Okay, didn't like it, clearly, but I'm like looking over the synopsis. There's some kind of a twist. She's a well-known marine biologist. I don't even remember what the twist was, okay? Do not recommend. That clearly wasn't good. Oh God, okay, this one is another one that I could go on and on and on. And I have, and I know I keep mentioning the vlogs, but if you want to hear me talk like really in depth, you can probably go back in my vlogs from this past year and see where I'm talking about these books even more than I am now. But this is one that I know I went on and on and on about. So I will control myself here. I'll try my best. But another life-changing book that I read this year, another 5-star, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Oh my God. Oh my God. This book is crazy. This book was so soul-crushingly bleak. It is a dystopian literary fiction, okay? It is about a group of women who are underground in a bunker. They don't know why they're there. They don't know how they got there. They don't know how long they'll be there. And there are guards who are men who don't speak to them, give them food. That's it. Day in, day out, they just live in this bunker, and that is all that their life is. And one day, some things change, but I'm not going to tell you what. But it mostly follows our main character, who is the youngest woman in the group. And we don't really know people's names because they don't even know who they are, you know. And our main character doesn't have a name either. So our main character is the youngest woman in the group, and she is not an outlier per se, but she feels a little bit differently than the other women do. It seems like the other women are just like fine with being there. This is our life. We don't know why we're here, but what the hell are we going to do about it? And our main character is more like, I'm not down with that, you know, like, but why this? Why that? She's questioning things. She has a little bit more of like a motivation to kind of go against the status quo, so to speak. And yeah, I really can't say more because I don't want to tell you what happens in the story, but I will just say again that this book was so good, but it was truly so devastating and so dark, and I sobbed my eyes out. I mean, cried like a freaking baby reading this book. I thought that it was so beautiful. I thought that it was such an interesting book to make us think more about life, the meaning of life, relationships, the meaning of relationships, what makes a relationship important, what makes life important, what makes life worth living. Like, I think some people probably hated this book and thought that it was boring as hell, which I could totally understand. But I also think that there are a lot of people out there like me that are like, this was life changing. It truly brought up these like really existential questions for me and made me kind of analyze my life in a certain way. And I think about this book constantly. I know that I will reread this numerous times, and it was just, there are a few books that you see, I'm just like, and this is one that I just, oh my God. 5 stars all the way. Okay, stick with me here, people. I'm scrolling through the books and we're getting close to the end. Okay, we're almost there. But this next one was unfortunately another disappointment for me. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't as impressed by it as I thought that I would be. And that is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. It's a literary fiction, mystery, thriller. You probably know it. You've probably heard of it. You probably have read it potentially, but I don't know, it just didn't wow me in the way that I expected it to. This book is set in a summer camp in 1975, so like the vibes are very cool, and it's about a girl named Barbara who goes missing from the camp. And what's really interesting about that is that her younger brother, had previously gone missing however many years before, okay? And her family technically owns the land that the camp is on. They're a very wealthy family. They live like up on the hill and they can oversee the camp. And really, this is a really fun one because like what's fun about it, again, I didn't love it, but what's fun about it is all the different perspectives that we get. We get Barbara's perspective, we get her mom's perspective, we get camp counselor's perspective, we get a detective perspective, hashtag detective perspective. I don't know, I just thought that was funny. That'd be a good band name. Okay, that's what it is. That'd be a good band name. We get a detective perspective from who's working on the case, and I don't know. Really, what didn't do it for me was the ending. Like, when we find out the ending, I was just like, really? That's the thing. It's like, I was very invested. I was really interested in like, oh my gosh, what happened? What has this person involved? Has that person involved? Like, oh, what about that? What about that? I love that aspect of a thriller. But obviously for me, a thriller, and probably for most people, really comes together at the end and like the answer of who done it or whatever. And so this one, the ending, I was just kind of like, really? I felt like it was kind of predictable. I felt like the book was really leading us there the whole way. And I don't know, I was just kind of disappointed with the answer of what actually happened. Okay, this next one I know that I've also talked about quite a few times before as well, and this is Blood Over Bridehaven by M.L. Wong, another fantasy that I read this year. So I don't never read fantasy, but this is again more of like a magic related fantasy, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I thought this was really fun. Now, it was an audio that I listened to, and it was read by Moira Quirk again, so I'm going to love anything that Moira Quirk reads. That's just the God's honest truth. But this I thought was a really fun story. So our main character is Siona, and she has always wanted to be a high mage, but they don't let women into the high magistry but like once every 10 years, I think that it is. And so she has worked her entire life to want to be a high mage, and she finally, climbs up the ranks and gets there. But once she gets to that position, she kind of learns that it isn't really all that it's cracked up to be. And of course she's amongst a bunch of men, so it's like, okay, ew, but she has an assistant whose name is Tommel, who is from kind of a lower class group of people who are treated like trash, basically. And really, the two of them end up working together to uncover a bunch of secrets about the magic of their city. Their city is in this bubble, basically. It's like in this protected bubble, and anything on the outside of the bubble are people and animals that the people in the bubble just like don't care about. They just like treat them as trash. They're less than. Who cares? Nobody cares what happens to them. We only care about what's happening in the bubble in this city. Okay, kind of sounds familiar. But yeah, it's mostly about what's going on with the magic in this city and uncovering how the magic is done, where the magical power actually comes from. And I liked this one. I thought that it was really fun. I thought that we got some good, not really, I don't want to say not romance, because there are definitely some like romantic vibes going on, but all the times where I thought it was going to start to get really romancy and I was like, ugh, okay, here we go. It didn't, and I appreciate that. So I thought this was really fun. I thought that it was very much kind of like a girl power kind of a vibe. It's mostly just about Siona and, her journey of becoming a high mage and the lengths that she is willing to go to get the truth out there is all that I'll say. Okay, now this next one is like literary, and I freaking loved it. This is Private Rights by Juhea Armfield. So my second Juhea Armfield book, and this one I liked quite a bit more than Our Wives Under the Sea. This one follows three sisters, Isla, Irene, and Agnes, and they haven't spoken in a while after their father has passed away. And they're all estranged from their father. He was like a really, really popular architect. And this is just so literary and so what I love that I was just talking about, which is like all about the relationships. It's another one that I've talked about on the vlog before as well, but it's really just about the relationships between these three sisters. It's very much about the roles that we play in our family and the expectations that we have of each other to fulfill those roles. And it was really, I don't want to say it was like triggering, because I don't know that I would go that far, but there were a lot of times whenever I was reading this where we're getting the perspective from all three sisters of how they're feeling, what's going on, going to the funeral, dealing with what you have to deal with after someone dies, especially a parent, and their expectations of their sisters. And you have two sisters together and they're like, oh, well, Agnes, she's always XYZ. And they're like, oh, classic Isla, she's going to be this way or that. And it just really, this one I loved because it really made me reflect on my own role in my family and my own thought patterns around members of my own family, where I'm like always expecting this person to do this just because that's the way that they are. But thinking about my real life experience of like, they don't always do that, And so I just thought that it was really interesting how much this one really made me reflect on life and our relationships, specifically with our family, more specifically with siblings, and the ways that we just think that they are the way that they are because of something that happened whenever you were like 7 years old. And it's like, our stories can change, And this one definitely was a little wonky. It got a little crazy at the end, I will say that much. A little like, what the hell's going on? But ultimately, yeah, it's a story about family and love and the complicated relationships that we have with each other. And I eat that shit up. Ooh, okay, the next two I can just kind of go over quickly because I already talked about them. Harrow the Ninth and Nona the Ninth. One more time, just let me tell you, if you're interested in the Locked Tomb series, start with Gideon the Ninth. You have to. If you like it, go to Harrow the Ninth, okay? I mean, it's next in the series. Just give it time, okay? Just give it time. I'm going to tell you right now, Harrow, I did not give 5 stars. I gave it 4.25 stars because for the first, 70% of the book, I was so goddamn confused. I had no clue what was going on. Every time I would close the book, I would go, I don't know what the hell is happening. This one I did try to listen to, but I was so confused. So I picked up the physical copy and was reading it. That wasn't helping me. I was like, I don't know what's going on. But I have to say, by the end, you do know what's going on. So just hear me out. If you try it, don't give up. Okay, just don't give up. Just stick with it. Trust me. And then Nona the Ninth. Oh my God, wait, I didn't even rate Nona the Ninth? Hold a damn second. Not hold a second. Hold the damn phone. Hold on a second. 5 stars for Nona. Loved Nona. Loved Nona. Loved Nona. Okay, that's all that I'll say about the Locked Tomb series because I need to stop talking about it. Ooh, okay, here's a romance that I actually did log so you all can you all can know that I read this one. And this was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought that it was really fun. It is about, clearly I've been talking for a long time because I don't know what the hell I'm saying anymore. It is about a radio host named Aiden Valentine who has a radio show, okay? Obviously, he's a radio host. He has a romance hotline. He gives advice. And one day, this young girl calls in for advice about her mother. She wants her mom to start dating again. And her mom's name is Lucy. They end up talking on the phone. Aiden and Lucy end up talking and having a heart-to-heart. And she just like really is upfront and honest with like what she wants in a relationship and what she hasn't had and how she thinks that she deserves this. And she's tired of the games and she's tired of that. And from that conversation, the radio station is kind of like, y'all need to have a show together. So they do, and you're never going to guess what happens. I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, they get together. Okay, I'll say that. I thought that it was fun. I really enjoyed, I don't know. It was fun for what it was. It wasn't to me like this is the best book that I've ever read. Lucy and her daughter, what's her daughter's name? Maya, maybe? I don't know. I'm not seeing. Yeah, I'm not saying her name. I feel like her name was Maya. I could be wrong. Lucy and her daughter are very much giving like Rory and Lorelai. You know, they're very much like blah, 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 back and forth. But I don't know. It was very rom-com-y in the way where it's like, ooh, we're like flipping pancakes and slipping on bananas and stuff. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, you know what I mean. It was very like silly, frivolous fun. But I will say that I felt like Aiden as a character had like nothing going for him except for being hot. Like we did learn some about his trauma and his family, but like that was all that we knew about him. I'm like, what's this guy doing in his free time? Does he read? Does he work out? Does he do sports? Does he paint? Like, does he have a life other than hating his life? I don't know. So he was a bit one-dimensional for me. Lucy was way more thought out as a character. But yeah, you know, they get together. It's hot, it's sexy. I enjoyed the times that were had. So, I don't know, I liked it. Okay, last but not least, the last book that I read this year, I ended it on another 5-star. Okay, I said I'm generous. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm rethinking that now. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukofka. Oh my God. Holy crap, y'all. I just finished this. Y'all know I've been talking about this book. It was so good. Okay. This book is about a man named Ansel Packer. He is scheduled for his execution. So the book, we get, again, multiple perspectives. We get the perspective of Ansel, okay, while he's waiting to die, basically. But we get more of the story from the women in his life. Okay, so he is on death row for killing multiple women, all right? Spoiler alert, sorry, you know that pretty much immediately. So he's on death row for killing women. Oh my God, shocker of the century. And most of the story we get is from the perspective of the different women in his life, whether that be his mom or whether that be another detective perspective, whether that be, you know, a friend or a sister of someone that he used to date or, you know, all various relationships. But I really enjoyed the fact that the majority of the story was not told from his perspective. This is very much not a, you know, glorifying the serial killer kind of a story, which a lot of true crime tends to be. And this is not true crime, this is fiction, but it is obviously crime, thriller, etc. And I personally used to really, really love true crime, but I don't anymore because, I don't know, I have a hard time with all of the details and it tends to make me really anxious. One thing that I really appreciated about this book is that we didn't get the nitty-gritty details. I didn't want the nitty-gritty details. We didn't really find out exactly what happens to the girls that he murdered. And I do say girls because I believe that they were girls whenever he murdered them, not women, but I could be misremembering. But yeah, we get most of the story from the perspective of the women who are in his life. And then we do get his perspective as he's counting down. And man, this was really, really an interesting, I don't want to say experiment, but I found myself feeling really interesting things in this book because I can't lie. In the times where we were from Ansel's perspective and we're like counting down our literal last moments before dying, I was feeling for him, you know, like of course, I don't agree with anything that he did. And again, this is all fiction, but of course, I don't think like he deserves any kind of like uh, slack at all. But I also, I don't know, we're getting into a totally different conversation. I also don't know that like killing someone is a punishment for killing someone. It's like, what, I don't know. I'm not trying to have that conversation. I'm just saying this book made me feel a lot of complicated feelings, but I loved it. I thought that our characters were different. They all had their own personalities. They all had their own, I don't want to say baggage, but they all had their own specific kind of feelings towards Ansel as a character and towards the justice system and towards men and towards, the victims. And it really was just a beautiful story about what their lives could have been if they would have lived and what the lives for the people around them were like with having to move on from their death and having to live while knowing that he is still living on this earth. And I can imagine how complicated that would be. And also, I was stressed out when he was about to die. Like it just is, man, if you've read this, I know that I recommended it to y'all, to anybody who is watching this that I usually see on Twitch or YouTube. Hello. So I would love to know what y'all's thoughts were about this one because, yeah, it just made me like, I don't know. I cried a ton. I'll tell you that. I cried and I cried and I cried. Actually, let me read this last little blurb here because I feel like this describes it perfectly, and I feel like I'm not describing it. I feel like I'm being like, no, everyone should feel sorry for him, which is like not at all what I'm saying, but this is what it says. Blending breathtaking suspense with astonishing empathy, Notes on an Execution presents a chilling portrait of womanhood as it simultaneously unravels the familiar narrative of the American serial killer, interrogating our system of justice and our cultural obsession with crime stories, asking readers to consider the false promise of looking for meaning in the psyches of violent men. And that's why it's complicated, because like I don't know, I'm interested to know what y'all's thoughts are if you read this, because, when you're in his mind and when you're reading from his perspective, you are like, oh God, like you're feeling scared. You're learning about his upbringing. You're like, Jesus, he didn't stand a chance. But again, of course, that none of that, makes up or explains why he did what he did. And he should not have ever done what he did. But it's like, man, why are we even bothering to worry about why he did what he did? I don't know. It was very complicated, I thought, but I loved it. Again, 5 stars. So good. Cried like a baby. Would love to know your thoughts. Specifically about that one, I would really love to know your thoughts. And if I said anything weird there, I'm sorry. I hope that y'all know what I mean when I'm talking about that one. Okay, really quick, I want to talk about the 3 books that I DNF'd this year. All right, I'm just going to go over them very quickly because clearly I don't have a ton to say. So the first one, well, I don't know if this is in order that I DNF'd, but it doesn't matter. I DNF'd The 3 Lives of Kate K by Kate Fagan. Snooze fest, didn't care. Sorry, I just didn't care, all right? I don't even want to go into what it was about. I felt like the relationship between the 2 friends was very much like I don't know, it felt like, I think that I described it as, that girl on Instagram, Delaney something, who does the like, girl character in an indie film who like, I know that you know what I'm talking about. The characters of this book felt like that. Like I was just like, I can't stand y'all. And I just didn't care. I wasn't invested. Something like really traumatic happens in the story, which kind of took me by surprise. But I don't know. I didn't care. I didn't care. Next, I didn't finish Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. Man, I wanted to love this book. I went into this book expecting a lot. I really enjoyed a bit of it, but I had to stop reading this book because it was so dark and so traumatic that it truly was just like over and over and over again was like horrible situation after horrible situation after most traumatic thing you could imagine after just, oh man, I don't know. It's rated very highly. People really speak highly of it. And I can see why, but it was just too much for me personally. And then the last book that I DNF'd was We Used to Live Here by Marcus Klewer? I'm not totally sure. This one was a horror, and I had heard really, really great things about it, but it honestly was just too scary for me. Okay. I'm not a huge horror reader, and I very much like, I'm the kind of person where I can't watch scary movies. Even if I see a commercial for a scary movie, if I see a scary image, I will like see it in my mind for 2 weeks and I won't be able to sleep. And I was reading this, and towards the beginning, something scary happens, and there's a very scary image described. At least to me, it was very scary. And I literally was like, close the book. I think it was on my Kindle, but close the book. And I was like, I cannot read that because I will not sleep. So I don't know. I might pick that one up again one day, but it was just, it just freaked me out too bad. Oh, yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say was my little graph. The genres that I spent the most time with, again, I should have said this at the beginning, but that's okay. Literary, thriller, LGBTQIA, contemporary, and then horror. All right. So that's what I go for. And whenever I look at my little wrap up thing, it's always like, reads books that are dark, mysterious, challenging. That's just the vibes that I go for. So there are all my books for 2025. All right. 32 officially logged. But like I said, probably more like 45 or so. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. Thank you if you have made it to the end. Holy crap. Thank you for sticking with me. Please let me know. Do we have any books in common? Do you have any book recommendations for me based on these books that you heard me talk about, that you heard me like, love, hate, etc.? I would love to know your thoughts. Any of these, if you've read them, I would really love to know what you thought. And I always love getting book recommendations from people. I'm down for pretty much anything. As you can see, I really, over the last couple of years, have tried to like branch out in my genres because I used to only read thrillers. But like I said earlier, they just get so predictable that I'm like, I don't know, I'm not as into them anymore. So this year I am setting a goal for 35 books because I'm sure that I can reach that. And I have already finished one this year. I started reading it last year, but I finished it just a couple days ago. So anyway, let me know if y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want any more book-related content from me. And if you want to hear me talk about books from time to time, please feel free to subscribe if you want to stick around. I do vlog, usually once a week. I post games. I post a lot of weird stuff, just a bunch of random stuff over here. Not weird stuff, but a bunch of random stuff. And I would love to have you here if you want to hang out with me more. So anyway, thank y'all for watching. I know it was a long one, and I will see y'all in my next video.